At one stage in the life of the official Marc Bolan Fan Club, Barry Smith joined the team. I've heard from several people that Barry was not happy in how the partnership ended and feels that he was very poorly treated and lost a considerable amount of money as a result. Figures around £20,000 were quoted. This sentiment was used in Terry Hughes' article in September 1999 in the issue of Mainman. As a result, for disregarding the points you raised in your Light of Love announcement in July 1999. So having heard Barry's side, which seems to be widespread in the UK convention scene, perhaps you could tell me why the partnership did end, and were you as impossible about it as I've heard? And finally, if Barry did lose the sums I've heard, was this reasonable, and did you lose a similar amount? Some form of documentation would be good, if possible, as collaboration.
Right, okay. Barry Smith. Barry had been an okay friend. We knew Barry quite well. We didn't have a problem with him. He was always a good laugh. Barry was in a dead-end job at the time. He worked for the electricity board. He was a manager in one of their shops, I think. But I think he was a very frustrated guy in that I think he wanted to do other things and couldn't see how he was going to get out of a dead-end situation. Barry approached Shan and I, and well, what happened was Shan and I were getting more and more involved in other things. We were still involved in the rock business, and Marc was obviously still our main thing, and always would be in a peculiar way. But as a result of all the good work we had been doing with Bolan, and nobody can take away from us that between 1982 and 1991 we did a huge amount of very good things. We fucked up occasionally, but a lot of stuff was good. So there were other spin-offs. We were doing all sorts of other productions and things. But what we were worried about at the time was that with the amount of time that we were going to have to dedicate to other projects, we were worried about losing the grip on the official fan club, which meant a lot to us more than anything, because the official fan club was there. It was something that we enjoyed being involved with. Barry, I can't remember, over a drink or something one day said, I hate the job I'm in, why don't I... Sorry, it started when he started doing some articles for us, and he did a couple of magazines, and he did do some articles. I can't remember what he did. Anyway, one day he said, why don't I... Could I come and work at the fan club? Because I've... had enough of what I'm in. And we said, well, at first we said no, but then the more we talked to Barry about it, the more he pushed. It seemed he made it sound as though it was a partnership made in heaven, because he would run everything on a day-to-day basis, and we would flip off doing our things and come back. We'd still oversee it, etc., etc. When we did finally get round to talking to him about it, we told him that obviously we'd have to form a new company, because we couldn't have Barry coming in on what we were already doing. Spaceball Enterprises came along, and basically what happened was that our company that owned the only way we thought we could run properly is if it was clean. So a license fee had to be paid from the new company. You can't just transfer goodwill and things from one company to another for nothing, because it doesn't work, and also the taxman gets very suspicious. So what happened was, we talked to Barry, and Barry said Barry was going to invest a certain amount of money, and in fact he invested £10,000.
Not 20.
Oh, nowhere near. Sorry, I've got to sanitise this. No, he didn't. He put £10,000 in, and I can prove it today to you that he put £10,000 in, okay? He paid £10,000 in, and that £10,000 was partly paid over to our company for securing the rights to do everything we need to do in the fan club. The only thing was that the only thing we were deeply worried about was that Barry said, I'm going to have to earn money as well. Now, we had never been in this position before. In all the years we'd run the official fan club, we had never taken a wage. We had a secretary, Jackie, who worked for us, and everybody at the parties knew Jackie very well, and when we were away, Jackie used to answer the phone, but she had no real knowledge of Marc, so she couldn't write the articles answer questions that fans were. I mean, she learnt over the years, but she still wasn't what I'd call an encyclopedia, whereas Barry was. The relationship started cracking when we found that several things started to go wrong. For a start off, we couldn't keep affording to pay Barry's wages. Barry was supposed to be paid a wage every month of several £100 a month, and we couldn't. We found there were times we couldn't afford it. Because the problem was, because Barry's only source of income at that time, therefore, was the fan club, it wasn't a pressure for us because we earned our money from other things. So the fan club, we were a very fortunate position to be in, because we never had to dip into fan club funds ever, because we had other ways of making a living. Barry got a bit distraught. We kept paying Barry some expenses money, which again today I can prove because we've got the cheque stubs. Mm-hmm. And if Barry or anybody says that we've made them up afterwards, I'll sue them. Okay, because again, all you've got to do is go back through bank records, and if Barry's not careful, we'll get the bank. Well, I don't know. It's over 5. Do they burn them after 5 years? I don't know whether micro-meshed or anything. Anyway, I think he'd be stupid to argue that he didn't receive these cheques from us. Okay, we signed a cheque and Barry signed a cheque, didn't he? Did he have a counter-signatory? Yes, he did. So. He was a signatory and we were. So it wasn't like we couldn't fleece him. We couldn't take money for ourselves and not pay him, because he signed and you or I signed. I can't remember. It was one from either side anyway. Then around September, October, we started getting a lot of letters from Marc Bolan fans, very upset. They were fan club members, very upset because they were suddenly getting pounded with promotional material about Darryl Reid. Yeah? Darryl Reid is a non-entity as far as I'm concerned. I don't like him. And I think he's a prima donna, and he's not even a prima donna that's been anywhere. Darryl Reid, we then found out, we asked Barry what was going on, and he said, I just agreed to send out some leaflets. Then we found out through the grapevine that Barry was actually managing Darryl Reid, or was running his PR or something. So there was obviously, to us, there was a conflict of interest, because he, certainly to the extent then we discovered that his telephone bills that we were paying were being used to promote Darryl Reid, and we were thinking, hold on, you can't do this. This is Marc Bolan Fan Club money you're using to promote Darryl Reid. So that didn't go down too well with Barry. Then he started pushing about his wages and everything. And at the end of the day, Shan and I said to him, okay, Barry, the best thing for you, I think we're going to have to split. And what happened was, at the Christmas party, whatever year it was, and I can't suddenly remember, we met with Barry before the party, and we agreed that he would leave. Now, stupidly, very stupidly at the time, what we told Barry was, Barry wanted his investment back, but he wanted the whole of it back. He wanted the whole 10 grand. And Shan and I said, you can't do that. You go into a partnership, you win, you lose. But we were stupid in that we gave him £2,500 in cash, and we gave him £2,500 worth of stock at cost. And the way we thought about it, that £2,500 at cost would realise him about between £5,000 and £7,000 in retail, selling through his own mail order, which was what he was going to do. And we agreed that we would get the rest to him, or as much as we could to him, in the new year. We actually did agree that the company would pay him another £2,500. Unfortunately, when Barry left, having taken £2,500 in cash off us and a load of merchandise, the fan club nosedived after Christmas. We suddenly found ourselves with no funds. Things were hitting rock bottom, and basically we told Barry that we couldn't pay him anymore. And then Barry got his solicitors involved, and that was about the July or August of that year. And I actually, again, have a copy of the letter from his solicitor, which shows the amount that he invested, 10,000, shows the amount that was repaid, and asking for the balance. And I wrote back to the solicitor and explained that we couldn't do this. The solicitor wrote back to us and said, in that case we will have to sue. And so I wrote back and said, okay, sue. and then that's it. That's the end of it. Nothing else.
So even when you paid him back the money of £2,500 and the merchandise that cost £2,500, if there was any shortfall, we're talking about £5,000.
We're talking about maximum.
Maximum.
Yeah, maximum 1,000 or 5,000 if he got all the money back he invested. You tell me.
Exactly.
You tell me any business relationship where you can go into, where you can both put 10,000 in, and then one party decides they don't want to be it anymore, and the other partner buys you out for your whole 10,000 initial investment.
Well, I personally have been told that he has a shortfall of £20,000.
He's a liar. He's a liar.
Can I just clarify one point? Did Barry know when he was going into this partnership exactly what that entailed? I mean, did he think that he was going to have access to Mark on Wax through that? I mean, no, because the fan club itself, I've known all along, it was a really non-profit organisation. It was just breaking even.
That's right.
So for Barry to come along and say, here's £10,000 and I'm going to join an organisation where I'm just going to break even, doesn't sound like a very good deal. So,
but he was desperate. He was desperate to get out of his mundane job. He was desperate to get out of it. And the only thing is, the way he put it to us was he felt that he could generate enough sales he had all these memorabilia and merchandising ideas, and he felt that he could generate enough money for the fan club to be able to pay him a wage.
And what, how was it split? Was it 50-50? I mean, did you and Shan
no. Shannon, the way it was left was that Barry would receive a wage and his expenses. Shan and I would continue not to draw a penny, which we never had, and so why should we start now? But at the end of the year, if there was profits left in what was now going to become much more of not a break-even and a promotional vehicle, but was going to become a going concern, any profits that were left in the company after all the expenses were paid, we would split 50-50. Either in shares, or in share divvies, if you like, in dividends in the company. But Barry was the only person who was going to earn out of it. We never had, so why should we ever start? And for Barry to say that he's lost 20 grand is just an outrageous lie. I can prove it to you in a document in here that it's a lie. You know, and I think it's very sad.
Another comment I've heard about the merchandise was that it had a face value of £2,500, but Barry took it because he had no other offer, and he could see that he could make £2,500 out of it anyway, because it was singles that had already been sent to the fans and things. So to find new people to buy it was going to be difficult for him. So one criticism he has made, or people have reported to me, is that he got £2,500 worth of merchandise at cost, but really he took it because there was nothing else on offer, and he couldn't see he could make £2,500.
Well, he could have turned around and said, "I won't take this."
But they were the same singles that the fan club had been selling all that time since they were released.
So
there
what
were
suddenly,
people still buying them.
I mean, there's people even now write to us asking for the Life's a Gas 12-inch, you know, and the Rarities albums, the Rarities CDs. You know, he's got all this stuff. He's taken copies of this. So I mean,
yeah,
sorry.
I've actually bought Rarities CDs of him.
Yeah, well,
the Rarities album.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the thing is, on the one, so what he's saying on the one hand is that he invested 10,000 into the fan club because he thought he could make it a going concern, but when it came to it and we offered him the ability to take away £2,500 worth of stock, but if he'd sold it correctly and done it in the way he reckoned he could. So what he's saying is, actually, he is saying that he had no faith in being able to sell the stuff, so what the fuck was he doing in the relationship in the first place?
Yeah, what I'm doing is I'm reporting.
No, George, I'm not having a go at you.
What somebody has said.
Yes.
So, you know, it may not have come from Barry, but that's one of the things that have been circulated.
Well, yeah. Well, in which case, I'm sorry, but you know, £2,500 at cost. I'd always maintained that that he would be able to make £6,000 or £7,000 out of that, which would have. And I don't know what he's selling. I don't know what he's selling this stuff for. I've no idea what he's selling the stuff for, but you know, I'd imagine the CDs he's probably selling.
I guess what I was getting at was that he was happy that with the £2,500.
Well, he had a choice, didn't he? I mean, this choice.
But he had £2,500 in stock or nothing.
Well, yes, but I mean, I'm sorry, I can't. The thing is, there was nothing else I could do at the time. You know, the fan club didn't have more than £2,500 in cash. You know, and I don't see why we should do it. Is Barry so naive that he thinks that Shan and I should put our hands in our pockets personally and find him his other £7,500 just because, you know, because he feels that he got into a relationship, into a business, and it didn't work, so he got out of his pram and he wants to go in with all his toys. Life ain't like that. You know, if it could have gone the other way, and he could have been looking at a huge amount of money at the end of the year, but his insistence on wages made it very difficult for the fan club to survive.
Who was actually in charge of buying?
Well, we all were.
You all were.
We all were.
So Barry did know that, was kept informed that when you restocked, what you were actually stocking.
Well, it had to be. It had to be because the checks were two of us.
Yes.
So if Shan or I were one signatory and Barry was the other, we couldn't do anything without him, and never did do anything without him. So, you know, it was either or of us to sign and him. So he knew every time there was a transaction or anything done,
What it was for.
he knew what it was for. Was there anything else in that question?
I don't know, there was enough.
Did we lose a similar amount? We haven't answered that. No, we did. Well, one could say we did, because in us having to, I mean, the fan club was on the floor, and Shan and I had to, when he left, had to put money in to keep it going when Interstellar Soul came out and everything, because again, the subs we were asking for was ridiculous compared. I mean, we only realised afterwards that we were actually laying ourselves wide open, because the subs that we asked for the Interstellar Soul, when you consider how much they cost to produce each one, I mean, we were breaking even again. So in a way, yes, we did lose, but we didn't lose the way Barry lost. But I'm sorry, but that's life.
Okay, I think we'll move on.
Yeah.
Would you clarify your position on the employment of Colm Jackson within the official Marc Bolan Fan Club? It is also claimed that you were deceived by this man whilst he worked for you regarding unreleased material. Is this true? And what were your feelings when it was alleged that he had broke into Mark's house, and what action did you take?
Right, Colm was never employed by the OMBFC. Colm was paid a freelance fee for doing some work for us. Like I say, until Barry Smith, we never employed a Bolan person. Okay, he was never employed by us, but he did some freelance work. Yes, we were deceived by Colm, because what I didn't realise Colm was doing was, when he was making up all the tapes for us and supposedly going through, he was actually making copies of it all himself and taking it away with him, which we didn't know. We used to leave him in front of the machines to actually download everything onto DATs. But what we didn't realise was he was also downloading and making his own DATs. Because I mean, you know, we were off doing things. He'd be left with the Revox machine patched into the DAT machine, and he was downloading everything so that we could make up new rarities compilations. So we were a bit devastated when it became obvious what had happened. We loaned him money and he never repaid us. It was only £100. I mean, you know, what's £100 if you can't be bothered? It's just not worth the aggro. It wasn't alleged that he broke into Mark's house. He admitted it to us one night when he was pissed.
I think that's sanitised to drunk.
Is it, George?
I think pissed.
No, pissed.
Yeah, I think
I think he would have to be pissed to bloody admit it.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
I stand corrected.
He said to his dying day, he will always be ashamed of what he did. And all I said to him at the time, how can you call yourself a Marc Bolan fan? And you would be amazed, and I'm not going to be the one to tell you, I'll tell you this now, but I'm amazed at some of the other people that did it as well.
You know them? I
know at least two of them. And people who are at the moment probably the most vociferous in all this anti-Bramley thing. And I think one of the reasons why they're so vociferous is because they know that we know that they broke into Mark's house. But there you go. I mean, I'm not going to start throwing the stones. Okay. Sorry, that's sanitised. We'll sanitise that one. But I mean, Colm. In fairness to Colm, and I always try and see both sides of everything. In fairness to Colm, he was genuinely remorseful of doing it, but he couldn't have been that remorseful at the time. And I can't imagine anything more sick than hearing on the radio that your idol's dead and then going around saying, hey, let's go around and steal what we can from the house. But there you go, there's a lot of other people stole things from Mark. I mean, that's part of the course. And what action did we take? None. What could we do? What would anybody suggest that we do?
Did you cease using him?
Cease using. We only used him once. I mean, we didn't really use him after that, did we? But not because we decided we don't want anything to do with you, be gone. I don't think we really thought about it after that.
It wasn't long after that Colm borrowed money off us and didn't repay
disappeared. That's true.
So.
Yeah. So
was it afterwards that you lent him money?
Oh yeah. Yeah, but the trouble is, we all do things in our life that we possibly regret. Like I say, I found it repugnant, but at the same time, it was a long time ago. I mean, so you've got to be careful. You can't be. If there's any of us in this room who haven't got skeletons rattling around in the cupboard, I'll be gobsmacked. Apart from Kevin, of course, because I've got such an unblemished past. But we've all done things that we might regret, and just put it down as that. He did seem genuinely remorseful. So what can I say?
I think you've answered that. Do you want to pause?
I don't mind. Yeah, I could do with a loo.
Yeah.